Finally, after all of these years, I can actually do one of my most requested Old vs. News. Old vs. New has been a series that has been on my channel for years, and it's actually had quite a bit of a hiatus recently. So I figured, why not bring it back with a bit of a bang, finally doing one that has been requested for so many years. This is the original Dark of the Moon Voyager class Sentinel Prime, compared with the Studio Series Voyager class Sentinel Prime. I am a huge Sentinel fan. He is such a jerk, and I love him for it. Voiced by Leonard Nimoy, Sentinel Prime is an absolutely fantastic character in the Transformers franchise in almost any iteration that he is depicted in, but I think my personal favorite is probably Dark of the Moon. And I've actually made it a bit of a personal mission to try to get every Sentinel Prime toy, and one of the biggest ones I still didn't have was the original Voyager class. Actually, back in the day, talking like 2012, I remember seeing it on store shelves and thinking it looked pretty neat. I kind of wanted it. I watched like the PR review and a lot of those old classic reviewers, and I contemplated it. But then the opportunity came for me to get the leader class. And I decided, you know what, I'm fine with the leader class. And ultimately, I love the leader class. I can see myself doing a Sentinel Prime video talking about that at some point. But for this video, I just want to talk about the Voyagers, because I'm very happy with the Studio Series Sentinel. It's one of my absolute favorite Studio Series figures. But I'm very happy to have the original Dark of the Moon Voyager. Looking at them, I think it's pretty obvious which one is objectively better. I mean, even looking at the backs, like the little wings and everything. Yeah, that is literally just a massive cape. And this one actually has a little bit more of an accurate shape to the movie. But yeah, they are fantastic toys. I think they both look pretty decent. One definitely better than the other. But I actually have a lot of fun with the original Dark of the Moon Voyager Sentinel. I think it's a very fun toy of the character. Alright, so first off, I usually do a little size comparison time. And seeing them next to each other, you can see that the Studio Series, this time around, is actually a little bit bigger. It's also very proportionate to the movie. That's one of my favorite aspects of the Studio Series, is that he has that super broad chest with the big spiky shoulders. The Studio Series captures the character of Sentinel perfectly. And the original Voyager, a little sad looking. a little dumpy. One thing that I always wondered was like this two-tone red. His chest always had like this darker red to it compared to the plastic, and it always kind of made it look like it didn't belong. Like this chest piece just didn't fit in with the rest of the toy. That was always my impression whenever I saw it on shelves back in the day. And it has a lot of this like dull gray plastic, especially like on the head and by the shoulders and everything. So it's not the best looker. And on top of that, I mean, it has quite the backpack, that's for sure. I mean, you can flatten it out just a little bit, but not a ton, because stuff is going to start colliding. And this one, like, yeah, it has a backpack, but it's actually pretty compact for what it is. Of course, movie Sentinel, his cape was a lot different from either of these toys, and pretty much the only way to get an accurate cape is, say, like getting an oversized knockoff where you just take the backpack off and replace it with a more accurate cape. I'm really hoping a company like Yolo Park or 3-0 gives us a Sentinel Prime, because I actually can see myself probably getting both of those. I'm just a huge Sentinel fan. Alright, that's the general comparison of these guys out of the way. Let's take a closer look at our little old boy. Aw man, what a toy. I'm very happy I finally got my hands on the original Voyager Sentinel. Something about it, dude. It just has that Dark of the Moon toy charm to it. It just has that weird jank that Dark of the Moon Voyagers had that I just oddly enjoy. Like the head sculpt doesn't really look too much like Sentinel. It looks very old and decrepit, and it doesn't have that cool, big, like, hangy down beard. It's all just kind of, you know, left on the head sculpt. I don't know, I just don't get Sentinel out of that. And oddly enough, he has clear light piping. His light piping is entirely clear. He has just clear eyes. There's no color to those eyes at all. It looks pretty bad. One funny thing my brother pointed out, I showed him I finally got this figure, and he pointed out how the head sculpt looks like our elderly neighbor. And I personally cannot unsee it. I think it's kind of funny, the resemblance. It's actually quite uncanny. Of course, I'm not going to dox my neighbor, but I figured I would just throw that out there for your amusement. His chest is entirely fake. That's just an entirely fake chest. Absolutely nothing there contributes to the vehicle mode. That's just all a faux chest. Kind of lame, but what can you do? He's got a lot of the fire truck parts, like on his cape and everything. His arms do not contribute to the vehicle mode pretty much whatsoever, but to be fair, I don't think the Studio Series does either. The legs seem pretty standard, pretty on par with what you would expect with a Voyager of the time. He does have a Dark of the Moon mech tech weapon, which is always appreciated. And I actually think his mech tech weapon's pretty cool. So how you activate it, you push down on the button. You have to make sure everything's lined up perfectly. Like he has these little locking tabs. You have to make sure they are facing forward. And it turns from a fire hose to, I'm going to assume, the cannon that killed Ironhide. So we have a little fire hose, and then we have like a rust blaster. That's actually pretty cool. And then once you push it down, if you want to rotate the tab, you can rotate it either way. It will actually lock into the cannon mode. I think it's kind of neat. It's kind of neat how it can lock in. That was always a nice feature that I appreciated with the Dark of the Moon Voyager mech tech weapons. I think one of the only deluxe ones that locked in was sound waves. But yeah, you can just go ahead and have him holding that if you want, or if you want it to be mounted on his back for storage, because that's where it's ultimately going to end up in the vehicle mode. You can go ahead and kind of get these little ridge pieces attached to this little clear ratchet piece, because that's how it's going to ratchet around, I guess. It's a little difficult to get it in there. Oh yeah, there's a bit of a spring. It kind of springs away. So it's a little interesting, but once you get it in there, you get it in there. And yeah, pretty nice. You can have him store it on the back. So his articulation is pretty meh, but it's not too bad. You can swivel him at the head, pretty standard for the time. He has universals at the shoulders. He has bicep swivels, 90 degrees at the elbows, nothing at the wrists whatsoever, nothing at the waist whatsoever. Then his hips can move forward pretty decently. They can move out. You have a knee swivel and a knee bend, and his ankles can move up and down for transformation. There is no pivot. So overall, the original Voyager Sentinel, if you're a big Sentinel fan like I am, I think it's worth picking up. It definitely has that Dark of the Moon Voyager charm. But if you're looking for a Sentinel Prime for your collection, I don't really think there's any substitute for the Studio Series. This one looks fantastic. That head sculpt is spot on to Sentinel Prime. His chest is also still fake, but this time around it actually does contribute to the vehicle mode. It's an inverted panel, and I think it's actually very cool. I love the look of the shoulder pads. Those look very, very nice. He's got these nice little hits of silver here and there. He's covered in red paint. He actually, if I'm not mistaken, has no red plastic on him at all. He might have just a wee little bit, but I think the entire figure is cast in this dark gray plastic. You can especially tell once you turn him around. You can see that's just a lot of gray plastic. I think most of what you're seeing is red paint, which is actually pretty neat. I do think they probably could have given him a little bit more paint detail if they did add some red plastic. Because stuff on the legs and everything, this could have been primarily red. But overall, I still think it looks absolutely gorgeous. It looks the part, dude. This is Sentinel Prime. Definitely one of the best, absolutely 100% Studio Series figures I think they've done. Now, I do know there are a few knockoffs. I believe Bayway's done a knockoff of this, and if I recall correctly, in typical Bayway fashion, it is absolutely gorgeous with all the paint application they added to it. I think that's something I'll probably pick up at some point. You might end up seeing that in my Sentinel Prime collection video. And I know there's also a super massive oversized one that's 12 inches tall. That one looks gorgeous and is also on my radar. But yeah, this Sentinel is quite the figure. His accessory is very simple, unfortunately. He just has his sword, which disappointingly is just made from the panels of the fire truck. So one half looks ugly and one half looks a little bit more prim and proper. I don't know which side, I don't know if I have it facing the right way or not, but I always have it like this, so I can kind of have it positioned like that so you don't have to see the truck parts. That's usually how I have them holding that. But yeah, it's a very nice looking Sentinel, that is for sure. Alright, articulation, he has a ball joint at the head. Unfortunately, not a lot of articulation, mostly because of that beard. Like, you can have him look side to side, just a wee little bit, but it's definitely not a full range because of the beard. A little up and down. Universals at the shoulders, bicep swivel. Pretty decent elbow bend. I'm actually pretty impressed with that. You can see it goes a little over 90. He has swivels at the wrist. I do believe he has something at the waist, but it's mostly just for transformation. Yeah, it's like a whole transformation thing going on, so it don't really have anything at the waist. His hips move in and out. You do have forward, of course. The knees bend pretty good. Little knee swivel right there. Then his ankles, they pretty much just have a little toe joint, and they are pre-sculpted to have a little bit of an A stance. So overall, I think the articulation on paper is almost identical to the original Voyager, but I think just accomplishes it a little more successfully this time around. Alright, speaking of the original Voyager, let's go ahead and get this transformed. Now, I've only transformed this once since I got it. You can probably guess where I got it if you know me and my channel. I've only transformed it the once, but I'm pretty sure it's a pretty easy transformation. I shouldn't be struggling too hard with it. So yeah, one thing I love about Sentinel Prime is his alt mode. I think his fire truck mode is really, really cool. I really do enjoy the overall design of the... Isn't it like an airport fire truck? Isn't that what it is? Yeah, I think it's really neat. One cool detail about the Voyager Sentinel is that his Autobot logos were printed to be kind of scratched out. So if you hadn't seen the movie yet, you know, you may wonder, like, oh, man, his Autobot logos are worn out. What's going on? Is he just that old? But if you know the movie, if you know the story of Sentinel Prime, you know, nah, it's just a little hint at the fact that he's not really an Autobot, at least not in heart, not in spirit. In name he is, but definitely not in his actions. Alrighty, so I'm trying to think, what do we do with the arms? The arms, I believe, just go down, yeah. Alright, so it seems like for the arms, you're going to want them kind of facing up like this, because the hands are going to tab in to those tabs right there, and the shoulder pads need to be a little bit more flat. Now, going back to this fake chest piece, it's very interesting how this works. It literally just slides the head with it. It's on a little slider here, and you slide it down, and the head just hides. And then you tilt it off to the side, like that. It can tilt either way, but it's supposed to just tilt awkwardly. That's something I always distinctly remember, like seeing reviews and everything for this guy. It was always just so odd to me how the chest just tilted. Alright, we can move the wheels. I actually appreciate how the wheels kind of go into the torso on this original Voyager. I think it's one of the few things that this actually does better than the Studio Series, how those wheels are at a bit of an angle. Alright, one of the last things we have to do is get this massive panel down, get the hands tabbed into it, and just kind of line everything up, all these little things, get it all folded in, all folded together, and we are pretty much there. Alrighty, I saved you the trouble of me lining everything up, going ahead and closing the side panels. That pretty much does it. Here is our Dark of the Moon Voyager-class Sentinel Prime in his airport fire truck mode, and this is definitely where this figure shines. This alt mode is fantastic for this Voyager Sentinel. He has the tiny little nozzle in the front. Looks like mine is... No, it's not chewed up. It's just at a weird, like, angle. That's just how it's supposed to look. I don't know, it looked chewed up for a second. He's got his massive rear view mirrors. A lot of nice detail on the side. 316 Fire Rescue. Again, those Autobot logos. Yeah, this is a very, very nice look. One little cool feature, a lot of these Dark of the Moon figures had tiny little weapons they could flip out. Like, say, the Deluxe Bumblebee, there's, like, a panel on his back that has, like, these little cannons. You can kind of raise it up in the car mode. For the Sentinel, you can flip these little cannons. You can flip these little railings. He's got these tiny little cannons off to the side. You can kind of orient them how you want, but still kind of neat. He's got a little weapon right there. A little bit of extra play for the vehicle mode. But obviously, the main draw is the fire hose. He has a big old mech tech fire hose. And of course, it can still activate the mech tech gimmick. Overall, this is an awesome alt mode. Always odd to me how that chest panel is tilted to the side. I will never get over how awkward that looks. I don't really recall any other Transformer doing something that awkward. But yeah, very awesome vehicle. Love it for this Sentinel Prime. Alright, let's get the Studio Series 1 transformed. I'm pretty sure I remember how to do this. I think I did it quite recently. Let's go ahead and get to it. So he has a lot of awesome panels that actually fold from the fact that the figure does a lot of inside-out motion. And I love how some modern figures are so inside-out like this. Honestly, if they ever end up doing a movie masterpiece, Sentinel Prime, I think they just need to model it off of this figure, and they're pretty much good to go. Like, this figure is very well engineered in a lot of regards. I think they did a great job getting this Sentinel all put together. One thing I love is how this kind of just wraps around in the front to form the front of the car. I love how that wraps around. Still have the little nozzle in the front. This time around it looks like it's kind of sculpted to be off to the side. But we do have the little rear views we can pop up. Alright, what are we doing next? We got the cab pretty much all done. Next thing we have to do, I believe the legs are going to do a little rotate ski, I think. Jeez, what do the legs do? Oh yeah, oh yeah. Oh my goodness. Definitely forgot some of this. Oh yeah! Yeah, I forgot that whole panel rotates. It's neat. And I know this is a whole little assortment of panels down here by the foot. Definitely lots of little panels. Where do these even, like, tab in? Like, right there? Yeah, there we go. I love all these little panels that uncurl and everything. They did a great job engineering this thing. Like, that is a lot of little panel work for a Studio Series Voyager. It's a lot of panel work. But yeah, we're actually getting close to being done, if I'm not mistaken. Go ahead and get these big panels more on the inside. We can also close up the wings, since those are just going to form the top of the alt mode. You know, it's pretty self-explanatory. Once the arms are together, those are going to slot in place and kind of nestle in a similar way to the original Dark of the Moon Voyager. Alright, so I went ahead and repeated all the leg transformation steps, and we just have to attach the legs and all these little panels to the top assembly. Definitely a lot of little lining up and everything. There's a lot of little pegs. Not the easiest task. Alright, and getting all that done off camera for the sake of everyone's brevity and sanity, we can go ahead and extend the fire hose right up there. And then we have the little sword pieces. Go ahead and put the handle in. And then these will just tab in to these sections right here. Just like that. And where some Studio Series figures shine in one mode or the other, I can say for Sentinel, he shines in both modes. This alt mode is fantastic, has a lot of the same awesome detailing along the side, bringing in the original Voyager. We can see it doesn't say Fire Rescue anymore, oddly enough, but it still has that R, the 316, the black, the red. Looks very, very nice detail-wise. Around the front, they both have some clear plastic. You can see they're a very similar size. Again, the Studio Series inches it out by actually just about an inch. The fire hoses are definitely very, very different. Yeah, kind of interesting how different these are, but they are both very, very cool. I definitely prefer the Studio Series in every way. Obviously, I think I have a lot of fun with the mech tech weapon on the original Dark of the Moon Voyager. But when it comes to Sentinel Prime, if you're looking for one, I definitely recommend Studio Series or even any of the Bayway knockoffs. Well, guys, that's pretty much it. There's my old versus new for Sentinel Prime. I'm so happy I can finally say that I've done this. It took forever for me to get it done. That's because I never had the opportunity to get the original Dark of the Moon Voyager for cheap until recently. I finally found it for like $15, and I was like, heck yes, let's go. It was all complete, very dusty, but in otherwise good condition. And yeah, I got a new Sentinel Prime to add to my collection, and I can finally compare it to the good old Studio Series. Definitely, in this episode, there's a clear winner. Studio Series is fantastic. Such an awesome representation of such an awesome character. Of course, we all hate Sentinel for him being a little bit of a poopy head, but he's still a cool character. We love to hate him. And I'm very happy to have both of these in my collection. I love all of the Sentinel Prime toys. Got to give a shout out to the Commander class, which is actually really good. I haven't played with my Leader class in quite some time. That figure for me is notoriously difficult to transform personally. I'm one of those collectors that has no issue with Revenge of the Fallen Leader Prime, but that Dark of the Moon Leader Sentinel, there's something about it. I haven't tried transforming it in years. So we will see how that goes whenever I decide to make a video on that guy. Alrighty guys, thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you think about these down in the comments below. Which Sentinel do you prefer? Did you have the original Dark of the Moon Voyager when it came out back in the day? If so, what did you think about it back in the day? Especially since we didn't have a studio series to compare it with until like about half a decade ago. It's crazy to think how long the SS one's been out. Alrighty guys, thank you so much for watching. Special shout out to channel members as always. Thank you all so much for the continued support. Have a great one guys, and as always, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.